Good morning. Welcome to Data Talks Live. I'm Dr. Tom. Today we're going to talk about data. So, looking at an article, Reuters, data centers in space. Jeff Bezos thinks it's possible. This article just says it's by Reuters. Amazon founder and executive chair Jeff Bezos said on Friday gigawatt-scale data centers will be built in space within the next 10 to 20 years, predicting they would eventually outperform Earth-based ones thanks to the abundance of uninterrupted solar energy. The number of these enormous centers, which store computing infrastructure, is growing exponentially as the world increasingly uses AI and cloud computing, driving a surge in demand for electricity and water to cool their servers. So the first thought I have is around cooling. I guess probably easy because space is cold. So you could, I don't know much about how they design spaceships and space stations and things like that, but I guess you could use the space as the heat sink for your heat exchanger. One of the things that's going to happen in the next, it's hard to know exactly when, in 10 plus years, and I bet not more than 20, is we're going to start building these giant gigawatt data centers in space. Bezos said during a fireside chat with Ferrari and Stellantis chairman John Elkann at the Italian Tech Week in Turin. The concept of space-based data centers is gaining traction among large tech companies as the energy needs to maintain such operations on Earth are growing sharply. I actually think this is kind of a good idea. I'm trying to think of what problems might be. So maintenance of physical infrastructure, obviously a big issue. You got to have folks who are going to be able to deal with hardware issues hands-on. I don't see unless it's like a satellite, right? So if you launch the data center as a satellite, I think that could really work well. I think another thing that this brings up is the issue of space junk and space trash. I feel like with the increase in the number of satellites, the amount of space junk has been really increasing over the last 10 to 20 years. So what point does that hit a critical mass? At what point is there just so much debris up there that it hinders the ability to put new things up there? So let's say you put a data center satellite up there and then it breaks down, the hardware breaks down for whatever reason, and you decide that it's not cost beneficial to make a repair. So instead you just put up a new one. Well, okay, that works for the next 5 years, 10 years, but how does that work in 50 years? Is there even a mechanism for us to get this stuff out of orbit and, I don't know, bring it down to the Earth or shoot it off into space? It's not trivial. That's certain. So I think those are issues that aren't being thought about that need to be dealt with. Here's another issue. BlackRock nears $40 billion data center deal in bet on AI. This is a paywall on Bloomberg, so I'm not going to read it. Never mind. Well, there you go. BlackRock. Everybody. BlackRock, I think, is the one of the three financial firms that controls more assets than anybody else. Patient email addresses and hospital data breach. That's the BBC. Hospital bosses have apologized following a data breach which exposed dozens of patient emails. The deputy chief of University Hospitals Plymouth, which runs Derryford. Okay, so this is in London. They had a data breach. A lot of data breaches out there. Protect your data. No jobs report today. Oh yeah, that's what we've been talking about on the channel. So because the US government is shut down, that's going to delay reporting on a lot of stuff. It's going to delay the jobs report. It's going to delay the CPI data that goes into Social Security. It goes in and how those adjustments are made. It goes into whether the Fed makes decisions on cutting rates or not. So the other concern around this data is I was listening to another podcast, Clear Value Tax, and he put out a video basically saying most Americans don't trust government data anyway. And it seems like it's becoming politicized now, where if folks don't put out data that the government likes, they just get rid of the person that put the data out and find a new person that puts out data that they like. So, how reliable can you, there's a lot of things that rely on that data. And if most people don't trust it, those institutions and how they make policy, the integrity of it goes down. So that's That's not a good thing, right? We want to have high integrity in the decisions that we make around interest rates and Social Security adjustments, because that affects our purchasing power, particularly for our seniors and our disabled folks. If they don't have inflation adjusted Social Security payments, their purchasing power goes down. Those folks don't make a lot of money as it is, and so we don't want to see them struggle incrementally more over time. Anything else? Yeah, there's a lot about that. A lot of articles about that today. Excuse me. Uber acquires segments.ai to grow data labeling business. In its post, Uber AI Solutions, Uber AI Data Services business said that the acquisition is part of its commitment to building its LiDAR and multi-sensor annotation capabilities. So for those that don't know, LiDAR is essentially like making a 3D scan of an object. 3D point plot, terms around that, they call them virtual twins. So you create a virtual twin of a physical object in order to work with it in the digital space. So the company said it's been working in this area for nearly a decade to use labels on real-world data to power autonomy, safety, and artificial intelligence breakthroughs. Segments AI brings solid experience in LiDAR annotation tools, deep expertise in domain. So I don't know this company, but it seems like what this team does is it creates metadata for LiDAR data. So labeling of 3D scanned three-dimensional objects. This gets talked a lot about in the alternative history podcasts, where they discuss the 3D scans that have been done in South America to uncover new, unknown ancient ruins in the Amazon rainforest, where they're doing 3D LiDAR scans from the rainforest, or looking at maybe subterranean chambers below the pyramids. A lot of work being done in the alternative history space for those discussions. That doesn't mean that LiDAR scanning the rainforest is alternative history. That is real and legitimate science, I think. The subterranean stuff that they did from the satellites under the pyramids, I don't know. That sounds, as someone who has worked with LiDAR technology before, it's like close medium range stuff. To do that from a satellite and then to do it underground, it's some technology that I'm not aware of, or it's not legitimate. And it's possible it's something I'm not aware of. Okay, so Reuters reported last year that Sahara AI raised $43 million to build a decentralized network where data providers, model trainers, and users all share in the value created. The co-founder argued there is often no transparency on how users' proprietary models and agents are used by the centralized AI providers, and no protection or compensation for users' contributions. That is a problem in general. So a lot of folks online are contributing to AI models, to data sets, to the training of AI models. You would think if an AI model is trained on a book that is proprietary or is someone else's intellectual property, you would think that the AI company that provides use of the model would have to pay a licensing fee to the owner of the intellectual property. And I think the loophole of how AI providers are getting around this is they're using internet scale data sets to train their LLMs, and the internet is full of aggregate kind of one-off data about these materials. So like someone writes a blog post about a book that contains information about that book, and then the AI can use that blog post to infer what that book is about and the information that it contains. So in that way, it seems to me like they're getting around the need for paying folks a licensing fee to use their intellectual property. But I think that's contrary to the spirit of IP ownership. I foresee that there's going to be much consternation around this, and I think there is some consternation about it already, but it's also difficult to litigate. I mean, how do you pick it apart? It's internet scale, so it's kind of indiscriminate. It's collecting information about all knowledge or all information on the internet, and so you almost couldn't have these AI agents in any meaningful way unless you were to train them on curated data sets where you purchased a license for all of the content within that curated data set, which there are curated data set providers out there today, quite a lot of them, quite a lot of Libraries subscribe to them, for example. So that's one way you could do it. But I think that is an issue that needs to be thought through in greater detail because it does seem to be undermining the concept of intellectual property as a whole. Here's an article. ChatGPT reportedly reduces reliance on Reddit as a data source. OpenAI is scaling back the use of Reddit data for training ChatGPT, prioritizing accurate, verifiable sources over conversational but unreliable content, aiming to reduce misinformation while trading some of the model's community-driven personality. For years, Reddit was a valuable resource for training its AI. Its vast range of discussions provided natural conversational styles. However, this data also included significant drawbacks such as misinformation, low-quality content, and user activity attempting to manipulate discussions to influence AI responses. This report change is part of the broader industry trend pushing for the use of trusted and verifiable data sources. The goal is to improve the accuracy of AI-generated content, reduce the spread of misinformation, and make the models more difficult to manipulate. So in a way that kind of works well with the discussion I was just having where they would pay a licensing fee to use a curated data set where there's kind of a gatekeeper or a traditional editor that makes sure that the information that's being put into the AI is verifiable. I think that works. I think that's going to drastically reduce the sizes of the training sets that AI is using, which could make the AI less conversational. I'm not sure, but an interesting line of thought to explore further. It's just if you're going to use reputable data sources, I think ChatGPT has to consider that, and all AI providers need to consider that they are using an aggregate of a number of folks' intellectual property who should be paid. I think that's all I have for today. So this has been Data Talks Live. Dr. Tom. Talk soon.